Reynolds. And I've been umpiring for about the last 10 years. I'm currently on the international panel. I've been asked by the committee to give this workshop on time, essentially. So permitted time allocations, PTAs.
You've gone on mute there, Paul.
You're on mute.
Peter, you've just muted Paul Reynolds. That's really smart.
I didn't mean to.
Jeez, I don't know if you got all, I think it was only the end. So this is going to be looking at the ways we keep the game moving, the way we use the laws and the playing conditions to make sure that the game is run on time. And we're going to be looking especially at permitted time allocations in the Cricket Leinster regs and how we interpret them, and hopefully give you a few guides to make sure when the season comes around, we know what we're doing. Now, let me share the screen with you there. Hopefully you can all see that. That's a picture of Leinster Cricket Club for those of you who know it. And there's a reason I've put up that picture. Their new scoreboard, they have a big clock in the middle. And everything we talk about tonight is going to be based on clocks and timings. And how, by making sure we deal with these correctly, hopefully we can avoid arguments. Permitted time allocations are in nearly all matches that we use in the top 6 of divisions in Leinster and Women's Division 1 as well. But it's also something that when we get it wrong, it has a big impact on the game. So hopefully this workshop will give you a few clues, give you a few pointers. And I'm here to answer any questions if you have. So as Peter said, either put stuff in the chat or put your hand up or interrupt me. It's not a long workshop, but it'd be great if everybody could go away from tonight knowing exactly what we all need to do to make sure a game runs smoothly. Okay, so before the match, as with everything when we're umpiring, what we need to do in relation to time management starts well before the match. It starts at home, really, in the days leading up to the game. And it also starts when you get to the ground in the hour before the match starts. So a few of these are basics, things that you need for all parts of the game. So know your regs for this match. Depending on what division you're in, the regs for time management are going to be subtly different. So it sounds basic, but I can't say enough. Make sure you read over the specific regs for this match. Is there any time history with these teams or maybe with this ground? So if you were chatting to your mate and he umpired the same team last week and they took, an hour and a half to bowl 15 overs, well, log that in your memory bank. And maybe that would mean that you need to, let some people in there. That would mean that maybe it's something you need to be prepared for. You might need to address them pre-toss, or even with the ground. We're going to get onto it. We're going to get onto it in a minute. But there's certain grounds within Leinster that it's easier to lose a ball, for instance. So grounds like the hills that might have a field or trees, or grounds like YMCA that's surrounded by gardens. There's lots of examples. But particular grounds are going to bring particular challenges. So, as I said at the beginning there on that picture of Leinster Cricket Club, check your watches and choose a clock or a watch. My advice would be, if it's one of these fancy grounds that has a scoreboard, a clock on their scoreboard, use it. It could be a few minutes out, but otherwise you're going to be going through the whole game, and the players and the spectators are going to be looking at the watch or the clock on the scoreboard, and you'll be saying, oh no, that we're not using that one. And they'll be saying, why not? So if there's a really obvious clock in the grounds, try and use it. It makes your life easier. There are clocks on grounds that you can see that you don't want to use, just to confuse things. So I'm thinking maybe, I think Pembroke have got a clock on the pavilion, which never works or never properly shows the time. But if there was if there's a new digital clock on the scoreboard, and I think who has them? Leinster has them, YM, North County, the Hills, I think, always use that clock. With your partner, check your watches. Check you've got the same time. It doesn't have to be identical. With a lot of clocks, if you've got an Apple Watch, it's that much harder to change the time. But just make a note. If you're like a minute or 2 minutes ahead of your partner, as long as you know, and as long as you include that in all your calculations, it's okay. But make sure you synchronize your watches and make sure you know which clock you're going to use. And always remember this this phrase, okay? If the fielding team is 5 minutes over, it's their fault. If the fielding team are 1 minute over, it's the umpire's fault. And what I mean by that is, if you're just a few seconds over or a minute over, you really should have managed the game in a way to find that minute from somewhere. You might have given someone, say, a minute for a ball getting lost or something. Well, it might have actually been 1 minute, 30 seconds. So you don't want to get in a situation at the end of the game where it's tight. If the team's gone over by 5 minutes, well, tough. And then you have to go down the route of penalising them in the correct way. But if it's really tight as an umpire, you should have managed that to make sure it doesn't happen. So just that one phrase there, just keep that in the back of your head, that if they're just over, you as an umpire should really have done something else to manage this situation better. So what are we talking about with permitted time allocations? All matches in Leinster have one of two things. They either have a permitted time allocation, and we'll go into that a bit in a minute, but most matches in Cricket Leinster don't. So the playing conditions for cricket for this year aren't 100% finalised yet, but they won't change much from this. So normally from the YMCA Salva down, from Division 7 down, and from Women's Division 2 down, there's no permitted time allocation. So what can you do? Yes.
Paul, YM Salva is on the same playing regulations of the Tulane this year.
Perfect. Okay, so it'll be from the Whelan Cup down. Yeah?
Division 7 comes in with Divisions 5 and 6 in the same playing regs.
Perfect. Okay, so it'll be just a bit further down than that.
Yeah.
There's no permitted time allocation in these games. Teams don't really have to bowl their overs in a particular time, but the playing conditions in Law 12.8 do say that they should maintain a satisfactory over rate. And as a guide, the Cricket Leinster playing conditions work off about 4 minutes per over. So if it's a T20 match, as a guide, it should be something like 1 hour 20, 80 minutes. A 40 over match would be 160 minutes. But in these lower games, that is only a guide, okay? If people take longer than that, what can you do? The laws are there to help us. So Law 41.9 and 41.10 deal with time wasting, whether it's by the fielding team or the batting team. But people, please pipe up if you've seen them used, but I've never seen these used in Leinster cricket. But the flip side of that is, if you don't use them, don't complain about the slow over rate. As a guide, and again, I know Peter Thew is a bit of an expert in this, but if you're doing one of these lower division matches and you think a game is being played too slowly, then use the threat of the law to speed people up, and to you can say to the captain, look, I really don't want to I don't want to have to penalise you runs, but you've taken an hour to bowl the last 13 overs. We've all got lives to be getting on with. You really need to hurry up. So use those laws to help you.
Paul, can I just have a quick question on that?
Work away, Bala. Yep.
Usually in the regs, you have a start time and a lunch time or tea time.
Mhm.
Could that be used as an approximation for the over rates and everything?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I suppose the key thing there is an approximation, and
So if they say, I mean, usually they say the match starts at 1:00 and the tea is at, let's say, 3:20 or something like that. So could you base the?
yeah, you can. But I suppose for these games, it's always going to just be a guide.
Yeah.
So if they're looking like they're going to go over into the tea interval by 10 minutes, well, the only thing you can do is to penalise them under Law 41. And as I say, I've never heard it, but yeah, exactly, Bala. If you get halfway and say, "Geez, Captain, if you carry on at this rate, we're going to be, running into tea or whatever," that's what you should do. But as I said there at the bottom, don't complain about the slow over rate if you don't want to penalise them with the law. But as I've also said, I've never heard of that law used, so it's not an easy one. For those of you who don't know it, or for those of you who are new, if a bowler is wasting time, there's a first and final warning. Then if a bowler is wasting time in and over, during an over, that bowler is banned from bowling anymore. So it's quite a strict penalty. But it's there, and tell a captain if it's really getting to you and they're really taking for ages over changing their field every other ball. You can. Why not just say to them, "Look, unless you hurry up, I'm going to do this." I'm absolutely not saying we should all do this every time it happens, but it's no harm just using as a threat. Everyone okay with that? Any questions specifically on that?
Oh, sorry, just we can assume though that like let's say the fielding side were ahead of our imagined rate, so they had bowled, we'll say, 16 overs in each of the previous 2 hours instead of the 15, and in the last hour they would be considered to be time wasting, but they had sort of built up credit. We're hardly going to start telling them to.
Yeah. No, I agree, Aidan. I suppose in this instance, and you do, I've never seen it, but you do hear someone on this call is going to get a bad one at some point this year, where a team is taking 12 overs an hour all the way through. So yeah, if they have a fast hour and a slow hour, Aidan, yeah, you're not going to be going down this route. But if a team is just they take 10 or 11 overs per hour for the first hour, and then you warn them, and then the second hour they're not much better. Well, then the third hour, yeah, you might be doing something. But for matches that don't have a permitted time allocation, this is the only weapon we have to speed things up.
I have a question there for you, Paul, from Ashish Sharma. If regs talk about no PTA for a particular match, do they overrule Law 41 or not?
They'd be the same in as much as, so these laws would be pretty much identical. Sorry, the playing conditions for these games would be pretty much identical to the law. Peter Thew might be able to correct me, but I think the only difference is that there's just a guide as well. So this second sentence I have here, the playing conditions just have an additional help to the umpires that says fielding teams must maintain a satisfactory over rate with a guide of 4 minutes per over. That's not in the law, but is in the playing conditions. Yes.
It would probably help if you were to say at the beginning of the game, I expect 14, 15 overs an hour, and then repeat it throughout the match.
Yeah, exactly, Jean-Louis. It's all about just giving them a gentle nudge. And I'll be brutally honest that I haven't done many lower division games where this has happened recently. So there may be many on this call who have experienced it a lot more than me. But yeah, but the one thing you shouldn't do, I guess, is just do nothing and then complain about it afterwards. As an umpire, we all have responsibility to Well, the tools are there. In this instance, there isn't much we can do, but there are the law there to help.
For me, I can, from personal experience, if I were to treat all matches the same and keep pushing the guys at 15 overs an hour, it's an easy job for me through the day. It's just one thing that's, I don't have to worry about if I keep telling them, look, there is, even though there's no time penalties in terms of runs, there is the law that can affect. I mean, you could lose 5 penalties. You could give 5 penalties to the opposition. That's usually, if you keep reminding them, it works out very well. Just as you would do to a senior division match with the PTA. Just be consistent. It's sort of a behavior that you do for all the matches, rather than just having different set of things for different types of matches.
Yep. Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, but Vala, we might the level of play might vary, so we can't expect a level 8 players to be like level 1, senior 1, and do 15 overs per hour. But as an umpire, I think it's important to manage the game and just make sure that they're not
correct. I just said I talk to them and tell them that I expect that much. I'm not going to enforce it strictly at 4 minutes and over. So if they're like 5 minutes over or something, that's okay. Yeah, you do give that leeway for a junior division match. But if you keep telling them that you need to quicken up, they do that.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks, Bharat.
One thing I've tried, Paul.
Yep.
I share Jean-Louis' idea of telling them, the captains beforehand, that I expect 15 overs an hour, and I suggest to them that they ask their wicketkeeper to jog from one end to the other, and it seems to speed everybody up. It's a psychological thing, I suspect.
Yeah. Yep. All good suggestions. Thank you. Okay, so that's the easy part, if you like. Games with no time allocation. Let's now move on to the matches, which, to be honest, most of us will be doing most of the time. So, what are the regulations that and what do we mean by permitted time allocation? So, normally, as Peter Thew has just said, so it's the top 7 OCC divisions and Women's Division 1 and all the associated cups. They all have a permitted time allocation, so they all have a set amount of time that the fielding team has to bowl their overs in. If you're looking, it's normally 12.4 and 12.5 of the playing conditions. And the detail is, so let's assume a T20. The fielding team has to be in position to bowl the first ball of the last over within 80 minutes playing time. That should be pretty straightforward. We'll go into all the nuances shortly. So it's the beginning of the last over. So if you're in the over before that, if you're at the if you're at striker's end, you walk to the crease as umpire, you walk to take your position for the last over. By the time you're there, they should just be in position, and they should have done that before the 80 minutes is up. But we do, of course, have in our control, we can give them extra time. So if there are any delays in the innings that are beyond the control of the fielding side, then we can add those minutes on. Much of what I'm going to talk about in the next 10 minutes or so is when and how we should add that extra time on. If a batting side is bowled out, the fielding team is deemed to have complied with the rates. So that's pretty straightforward. So even if, say, earlier on in innings, it looks like they're going to be behind and the fielding team have been very slow, as long as they bowl them out before that 80 minutes is up, they're fine. It doesn't matter. And then if their time runs out and we have to impose a penalty, we'll get onto that in a minute, but they keep on bowling the overs, okay? So if you put a penalty after 18.3 overs, you keep on going and you finish the innings. At the instant the time runs out, as soon as the ball is dead, you add 6 runs to the batting total for every whole over that's not been bowled. And again, we're going to go over a few examples of this to help everybody. But if, for example, the 80 minutes finishes and you've had 18.3 overs, you look at your watch and you think, right, their 80 minutes is up. After 18.3 overs, you signal to the scorers and you tell everyone else involved that you're adding 6 runs, a 6-run penalty to the opponent's score. And sorry, that's a repeat of the previous one. And this is an important one as well. If overs in the match have been reduced, then you need to be in a position to bowl the first ball of the penultimate over within the permitted time allocation. Sorry, just going to let some more people in there. Sorry, folks. So if you're starting a match as a T20, if it's reduced to 19 overs, then the fielding team only has to be in position to bowl the start of the 19th over. So an over before the last over in their 18 minutes. So the thinking behind that is always that, there could be, if there's rain around, there could be towels, there could be extra delays. So they're just allowed an extra over to get their time in. Yes,
It's
Kevin.
Kevin. Can we go back for 1 second just to you said if a team is bowled out, then there's no time penalty. It's not quite as simple as that.
If they're bowled out before their time penalty has
Before the time expires.
before the time has expired.
Yeah, so but in theory, say for example, you have a team who the time expires with say 8 balls to go and you penalise them, and then they're bowled out within those 8 balls, the penalty still applies.
Tough. Exactly. Yeah. So so if they're bowled out within their time penalty, then there's no penalty. But as Kevin says there, if and I can always imagine there being a few arguments about this, but if you penalise them because they're slow and then they bowl the team out in the last over, they still get penalised.
And
Is that right,
case,
Kev?
just in case you think it might never happen, it happened in the Super 3s competition last season.
Thank you. Everyone okay with that? I know there's sometimes some confusion around how the penalty is imposed. One thing actually I don't have on this slide is how you signal that penalty. There is no way to signal it. So I've heard it said, I wouldn't say it's wrong, but I know some people might give a 6 signal. That's probably not right, because that isn't right. You're not signaling, it's not a boundary 6. If you start signaling penalty runs, that's going to confuse the scorers as well. So to be honest, there's no good way of doing it apart from walking off the pitch and telling the scorers exactly what has happened, and then waiting for the scoreboard to be updated and then starting the game again. Any scorers there, Peter Searson? Would you agree with that from a scoring perspective?
Well, if you have walkie-talkies, you'd walk it. Maybe tell the people at the very end, just between the innings, just that the scorers will know themselves that there's time over. So maybe just wait until the very end and then go over to them before they finish their books and tell them that there's been time added or penalty runs to be added on.
Thank you, Peter. Anyone else? Any questions specifically around the regulations there? Okay, we shall move on. Now, you might have to get your thinking caps on a bit here. So if the innings is reduced to rain, okay, you've also got to work out the new permitted time allocation. So let's just run through a very simple example. So you need to work out the new length of the match. So it's rained for a certain amount of time. You're going to reduce the game down to, say, a 12 over a side game. Do your normal calculations. Don't think about the permitted time allocation at this stage, and just work out the new length of the match. So assume you started as a 50 over game. It's rains. You've done your calculations, and now you've got a 40 over per side match. So in Leinster, we nearly always work off 4 minutes per over. So if you've got a 40 over innings, you've now got 4 by 40. So you've got 160 minutes would be the new permitted time allocation. Sorry, let's go back on that. So you need to work out how long the innings has already been in progress. So say we had maybe an hour's play before the rain came down. You need to take that 60 minutes you've also already played from the 160 minutes in total. So that means you've got 100 minutes left in the game. And however long you've is left in the innings, that is how long the fielding team is going to have to finish their overs. So say you've got 100 minutes left, you're starting at 3 o'clock. So that'll be 20 to 5 would be the extra 100 minutes. And at this point, you also need to add any time delays you've had in the hours play you've had. And then finally, once you've worked all that out, tell the fielding captain what their new permitted time allocation is. Did I go through an example? I didn't there, sorry. I probably should have put an example in there, guys, which isn't very useful, but this is quite crucial. So after a rain delay, I'll just go over it again, sorry. After a rain delay, work out how long the new innings is going to be. Work out how much time you'd have for that innings as a whole. Deduct from that any time you've already had, and then add in any delays you had in the first period of play. Does that make sense to anybody? I'm not sure I've explained that well.
I think it's one of those things, Paul, that you really need an example to work off. I appreciate the wording, but it's like anything. It's like trying to explain a maths problem. It's okay to do it with an example.
Yeah, it's okay. We'll work through some examples at the end there as well. Okay, so let's just try and get into some specifics now. Now, most of you will recognize that as YMCA. And the reason I've put up a picture of YMCA is it offers lots and lots of different examples of how we may have to add in time delays, how something could happen to the fielding side that is beyond their control. I'm just going to go around the ground, if you like. So again, for those of you who have played or umpired there, you may know this already, but for those of you who haven't, in the middle of your screen there, you'll see the hockey pitches. The ball goes in there frequently. The ball's never lost. You can always see the ball, but it can take quite a long time for someone to get in through one of the gates, walk across all the pitches, get the ball, bring it back. So even though the ball might not be lost, you might still have to, you might still have to add in time. Over here on the top right of the screen, you can see the nets. Now, most of the time, the ball will just run over the nets. The fielders will pick it up and throw it back. No problems. But sometimes it goes a bit further and gets lost in these hedges over here. Then you might have to start adding time. At each end of the grounds, we've got trees over here on the left. And on the right, we've got, gardens. If the ball goes in there, it's going to be lost and you're going to be adding time. Behind us, where the picture's taken from, is the car park and the clubhouse. Normally, the ball will go there. People will just pick the ball up and throw it back. No problems. Sometimes it goes into the car park and it could take a couple of minutes for the fielders to find the ball. So there you may be adding time. The apartments just to our left behind us, most of the time, the ball will go over there. It could take a couple of minutes to get back. But sometimes the ball just goes over the fence and a fielder will pick the ball up and throw it back. So there's lots of examples there in the same grounds. Sometimes we'll be adding time on because it's beyond the fielding team's control, but other times not. And over the next few slides, I just want to give a few more details on when I think you should and shouldn't be adding time. And we'll use YMCA as an example because it's just quite a good ground for this kind of thing. It offers lots of examples of where time can be lost across a match. So here's our example, and please everybody just jump in if you don't understand something or if you want me to explain it. So this is a notional Phoenix YMCA game, okay? YMCA are batting. You've done everything we've talked about. You're ready to go. You've discussed everything with your colleague. You go out there for the start of the match. You're ready to start, and Phoenix are behind you in a huddle. And now the time's delayed. Now, that's not beyond their control. That's their fault. You might just want to say to them, guys, come on, we need to start. But personally, that's their tough thing. They should have started, for example, at 1 o'clock. If they want to spend 2 or 3 minutes of over the innings having a chat, well, that's their problem. So that would be an area I wouldn't be adding time on, because that's not beyond their control. That's something that the fielding team has chosen to do. First ball, sorry, go on, Aidan. Yep.
Paul, can I just jump in? If we haven't called play and they're having the huddle, we're still taking that 5 minutes off them.
I personally would, yeah. But if people now, that's an exaggeration for this. I don't think it's likely that you're going to get a 5 minute huddle going to the game. But
another example might be you come on to the field, we come on the field at sort of 3 or 4 minutes to thinking that everything's okay, and it's just taking the batting side come out, the two batters come out, and the fielding side, it just takes them forever they're coming out in dribs and drabs, and by the time they all get on the field, they don't go into a huddle or anything, but it has taken them, by the time we look at our watch, it's 103. And like, we can't call, I suppose we could call play, but when they sort of at that situation where they sort of come out onto the field in dribs and drabs.
Yeah, like personally, I think you're right. I think if they were just being slow, it was an extra minute. Look, you'd say the game started a minute late. You haven't called time and you let them get away with it. I don't know if people agree with that or not. But in an extreme example like this, where there was a long huddle, I absolutely would not penalise them for it, but I wouldn't give them extra time. So I suppose it is a case of just feeling the situation. I don't know. Do people agree with that? Is that something you do as well?
I think a quick word with the captain, say you're losing 1 over here. If you're not quick enough to take your position, might help, or something along that line, of course.
Yeah, look, it's all about communication. I don't want to get too carried away. That's quite an extreme example I've given up that way, but I definitely want to make the point that there are things such as huddles that is absolutely in the fielding team can control, and we shouldn't be adding time on. We should only be adding on time for things that beyond the fielding team's control, and this isn't one.
Matt Adamson says the regs specify a specific time, i.e. 1 o'clock, not 3 hours 20 from the time. From the call of play.
Yeah. I suppose there's a few people have alluded to that it's how you deal with it. Look, I don't know about everybody on this call, but I tend to go out to the middle, maybe about 3 minutes, 4 minutes to before the time you want to start. I know the laws say 5 minutes, but it works both ways. And then sometimes something happens and you're a minute late. And a lot of the time it's just about feeling the situation and you don't want to cause a confrontation by being too harsh on this straight away. But at the same time, you don't want to, if they did say take a 5 minute huddle, you don't want to sort of penalise them. You don't want to be too kind to them. So it's all about just feeling it a lot of the time with this, guys, I think.
Just to be clear, the playing conditions stage the amount of playing time. They don't skate a time from the start time. So playing time is from when the game commences to when it ends. So it's not quite accurate to say the regs specify a specific time, 1 p.m. It's not that simple. It's the amount of playing time that counts.
Thanks, Kev. Okay, so first ball in this notional match, Aaron Corley comes in, big fast bowler. He bowls Jack Texter first ball, and the off stump smashes in half. You've got to go and get a new stump. It's going to take 5 minutes. That's not something that is in the fielding team's control. So you absolutely should be adding time on in that. So we all have a notebook. You should be writing or back of your bowler's card. You should be writing the details down on it. So I may be right. 102, stump broken, add 3 minutes. Make a note of that. Make sure you know the time that actually happened as well, just in case anyone asks for more details. And personally, and again, people may disagree with this, I'd always slightly err on the favourite side. So look, if it takes 3.5 minutes to go and get the stump, give them 4 minutes. Just to, there's no point giving them 3 minutes, or you could give them 3.5 minutes, or 3 minutes 27 seconds. But to be honest, life is a bit too short, in my opinion, to be doing that. So round these things up. Give them 4 minutes and move on with the game. A few overs later, it gets confusing who's playing for who in this. So Rory Anders is batting for YM, and he hits George Dockel for 5 fours in an over, and they all go to the car park. That's just tough, guys. You quite often see instances, and I'm sure a lot of you have done it, where a fielding team gets penalised runs because they've been slow. But all that's happened really is that there's been a lot of runs scored in the day. Well, the playing regulations don't really help the fielding team there. So if you get 5 boundaries and over, and each one is easily found, and the ball keeps coming back, unfortunately, that's just something that the fielding team has got to live with. If some of those balls were getting lost, and it was taking like a couple of minutes to find a ball under the car, well, that's a bit different. But if it's just a case of ball gets hit to the boundary, fielder picks it up, throws it back, and that happens repeatedly, well, unfortunately, the fielding team has to live with that one. So that's something you wouldn't be adding extra time onto. I mentioned this in the introduction bit. So Harry Texter hits a big 6 into the hockey pitches. Now, as I said, for those of you who know YM, the ball can go in there. You can see the ball, but it could still take 3 or 4 minutes to get the ball back. So again, we've just got to be a bit touchy-feely and take into account that there's nothing. I know in the previous one I said that you wouldn't give extra time just for having a boundary. That can happen in every single ground in Leinster. You get 5 fours in and over, and it takes a bit more time. That's just tough. But where you've got something specific, like the hockey pitches in YM, where there's nothing really the fielding team can do but take an extra 3 or 4 minutes or 2 minutes to get the ball back, I'd always be adding time over in that instance. I don't know if anyone can think of any similar examples. Maybe the tennis courts in Terenure or Leinster. What else is there around the province? But that kind of thing. Now, here's a slightly more controversial one. And again, this happens for all sorts of batsmen in all sorts of games, but I'm picking on Harry Texter as an example here. Some batsmen are never ready. The laws and the playing conditions say that a batsman should be ready to receive the ball when the bowler is ready to bowl it. Harry Texter would be one. I don't really want to pick on him, but he's always ready maybe a couple of seconds after he should be. Now, you're not going to add a couple of seconds extra time. But if the bowler's coming up to you and time is tight and everyone's getting a bit frazzled, and the bowler says, "Well, why is he not ready? This is ridiculous." Maybe just add a minute, or the little 2 seconds across the match. They all add up. Just give a minute to the fielding team, because this is something that has been beyond the fielding team's control. And then you can just say to the bowler, "Yep, no problem. I've given you a minute for that." Keeps everybody happy. Everyone okay with that? Do anyone think we shouldn't do that? Or?
I think you might remind the batsman that he's supposed to be ready when the bowler's ready.
Oh, exactly. Yep.
It stops the problem, you hope.
Yep.
What you get as nice, for want of a better word, is giving them a minute for a change of gloves and changing side screens, left hand, right hand, and these kind of things as well, Paul? I mean, what would you be adding for each of these?
Yeah. Oh, don't nip my script, Will.
Right. Okay.
So again, these are all specific to YM, but they can happen in lots of other grounds as well. So Bobby Gamble hits a 6 that jumps over the fence by the apartments. And this is something where we as umpires, you just got to think on our feet. Sometimes, specifically there, the ball will jump over the fence, the fielder can jump over, pick it up, throw it back, and you've lost no time at all. So to be honest, why would you add on time? But other times it will jump over the fence and it could take a couple of minutes to be found. So you just got to think on your feet. I'd always slightly on the caution of giving extra time if possible. You've just got to weigh that against being fair to both teams, and not getting carried away for it. And this can be quite difficult. A lot of the time, you're only going to get that by experience, but you've just got to think on your feet. Now, here's a good one, and I didn't mention this earlier on. In YMCA at one end, for those of you who know it, there's a building at the bottom ends of the grounds. If a ball goes on that, it's lost. You just can't get it back. But say if you've got a spare ball in your pocket, you can get the game running again straight away. So even though you've got a lost ball, perhaps you don't have to add time. So there's lots of little, just little intricacies there that it's in our power. And I'm not saying this is easy, but as we get more experienced, if you like, and as you get used to different situations, you'll know when to add time and when not to add time. So has everybody got a pen and paper? I didn't specifically ask you to bring anything, but let's just work through an example. This same match in YMCA, and we'll just try and put some figures into it. So you have a 20 over match. It starts at 1 o'clock. Umpires go out to the middle. Everyone's ready. So the fielding team takes an extra 2 minutes to set the field, and the first ball is bowled at 13:02. Have a think about whether you add time on that, and just make a small note. So if you've got a bit of paper and a pen next to you, imagine that's your match card for the day. So I'd be writing down, well, if I'm going to give this as extra time, I'd be writing down 13:02, 2 minutes, slow to start or slow to set field, or maybe I wouldn't be adding time. So write that one down there. Let's move on to the next one. So at 13:04, a batsman asks for the sight screen to be moved, which takes 2 minutes. Will, you asked the question here about sight screens. There's no easy answer, to be honest. The sort of convention we use in Leinster cricket, is that the batting team is responsible for moving the sight screens. So it's a bit unfair to punish them for if the batting team aren't very quick at moving the screens. Against that, it is part and parcel of the game. So I take the opinion that if the batting team have got people on the screen and they're moving it, and they do it sort of promptly and when asked. If you just have a lot of screen changes throughout the day, for example, if there's a left and a right hand batsman and the bowler keeps changing, well, that part of it is tough. So you might give some time to the sight screen being moved to begin with, but apart from that, it's a bit like the boundaries being used. That's it's just tough. Everyone okay with that? So again, write down on your notebook there whether you'd add 2 minutes or not. Okay, and this goes back to the example from earlier on. So it's 13:26, and it rains for 24 minutes. We're playing a match in this example scenario where there's no extra time. So have a think that 4 minutes per over, you've lost 24 minutes off the match. How many overs would the innings be reduced by? I'll give you 30 seconds or so just to have a think about that one.
3 overs each. 6 by 4.
Only the calculations in a match were always that easy.
Well, we lost exactly 24 minutes, I would suspect.
Okay, so then at 13:53, the 6 is hit into the hockey pitches, and it takes 3 minutes for the fielding team to get the ball back. So again, I'm not saying you have to put these down as delay time, but have a think. Would you do it? And then make a note of it on your notes, on your notebook. Okay, the 14th over takes 7 minutes to bowl. It's a very long over because 5 boundaries are scored. Each time the ball gets to the boundary, the fielder picks it up. Would you be giving any extra time to the fielding side here? Make a note in your on your card if you would. Here's one we haven't discussed in detail. So in the 15th over, the opening batsman who was on 76 not out asked for a drink at the end of the over. He has it quickly, and then the 16th over will begin with no delay. Now again, we touched on this a bit earlier on. No time has been lost. So look, you don't have to give extra time here, but why not? What harm has it done? So if it's really tight, the fielding team is going to be quite agitated maybe. Everyone's going to be getting a bit tense. They'll start saying, oh, but he had a drink. If you just say, yeah, no problem, I gave you a minute for that. It just helps calm the situation down. Just makes everybody's life easier. So again, well, I've told you what I think, but I probably wouldn't be, sorry, I would be giving them an extra minute for that. So again, just note it down in your notebook. 1 minute at the time it happened, and the reason. Okay, let's just backtrack. So if everybody hopefully has been making notes here, we can now get to the answers, if you like. We're going to go over these in a minute, but just in your head, at 14:40, the 16th over starts. What happens now? Now, this isn't a test. We can go back over all these afterwards. We're going to go over the answers afterwards, but just in your head now, just have a think about what you do at 14:40 as the 16th over starts.
Paul, at that stage, have we not bowled too many overs? 24
3 overs per side. So
Yeah.
last 6 overs
Correct.
on the match. So 3 overs per side. So It should be 17 over game.
Thank you,
True.
Hasn't.
True.
Okay, and then 14:46, the 17th over starts. What happens now? And then at 14:48, the batting side are bowled out for 121 from 16.2 overs. How does that affect things? And again, this, well, I don't want to give too much away, but this was Kevin's point from earlier on. Okay, guys, so that example I've gone through there. We're going to go back over the answers in not a lot of detail, but if you don't understand something or if you want to discuss something, please come back to me, shout it out. Much of what we've discussed tonight is in this example, and we'll go through a few things such as around the how you manage the situation on field as well. So,
do you mind showing me the previous one, please?
Yeah,
7, 8, 9, please.
So, that one?
Yeah, please.
If you can just move one small ball with the main example one.
Say that again, Prashant. Which way?
If you can just move a slide back, I just need to see the entire example.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Start there. There's no rush, guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Sorry.
Or are we to understand it's a 20 overs game?
Yeah. 20 over match. Yeah. 20 overs per side.
Thank you, sir.
I meant to say before we start, everyone, that unfortunately this isn't the sort of sexiest topic in the world of umpiring, to be honest. It's not like Banksers and sixes and razzmatazz. It's a little bit dull, but can't be helped. Can I go on to the next slide there for everyone finished with that one? Yep. You all right there, Azan?
Yeah, all good, sorry.
Okay, guys, let's work through this example as we go and just see where we get. And please, if you have any questions, just shout them out. So T20 match starting at 1 o'clock. So normally matches in Leinster, we work off 4 minutes per over. So 80 minutes for an innings. So we'd be expecting the match to finish at 14:20. That's to begin with. One bit of fieldcraft there, actually, before we get going. Captains should know that they've got 80 minutes. So I wouldn't be saying to them every single match when they've got to finish. You know, there's certain things that I'd expect a captain to know, and that would be one of them. So don't feel every single game you have to tell the captain how long they've got. Beginning of a season, I would, but not every game.
Or would you expect the same in Division 17?
Yeah, I don't know, and someone might be able to give me advice on that. I suppose if they don't get umpires very often, yeah, there's a good chance that you should always be telling. Now, obviously, they're not going to have a PTA, but in the same way, Jean-Louis, you said about telling them, you know, that they should bowl it with 15 overs per hour. So PT2 this season, Division 7 will be having a PTA for the first time. Is that right?
No, they had it in 2019.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
You can start umpiring down there, Paul.
Perfect. Okay. So you go out to the middle. Everyone's ready. And the fielding team takes an extra 2 minutes to set the field, and the first ball is bowled at 13:02. Now, personally, I'd say that's the fielding side's problem. They've got no excuse. So I just wouldn't do anything. You know, all we're doing there is we're not giving them 2 minutes. So I wouldn't put anything in the book. At 13:04, a batsman asks for the sight screens to be moved, which takes 2 minutes. Yeah, give them 2 minutes. In an ideal world, you would have all made sure that the screens were in the correct position before the match, and that wouldn't happen. But we all know what, you know, sometimes a left arm over bowler might decide to bowl, or something changes, or a batsman, you know, is really difficult wants the sight screen moved by 3 inches or whatever. But just add those 2 minutes. You know, why not? It makes everyone's life much easier.
Paul, it's a good idea here to try and keep track in your head of the revised cutoff time. So the 2 minutes here would push it out to 14:22.
Yep. Thanks, Kev.
Just in relation to that, on that point that Kevin's just made, we have stated that it's the fielding side's problem. So as far as I'm concerned, we're still looking to finish at 14:20.
Not for point 2, it's not.
Yeah, so I think for point 2 there, it's not Will. I'm saying that.
Sorry, I'm still on point. I'm still on point 1.
Yeah. So for point 2, I'd say that's beyond the fielding team's control. That batsman.
Okay.
So I'm giving them an extra 2 minutes.
Okay.
Now, this Will goes back to the examples that we had at the beginning. So so let's just work through it in our heads, okay? So we've been off for 24 minutes, and obviously I've made this example quite easy, and there's no extra time. So we lose 24 minutes in the match at 4 minutes per over, so that's 6 overs off the match. That's 3 overs per innings. Okay? So,
Paul?
Yes,
30 minutes grace?
No, I'm just saying, so there's no extra time for this example.
Okay, fair enough then.
Just to keep it simple. So we're reduced to 17 overs. So I can't think what I did for the next. How did I put this? Okay. So it's reduced to 17 overs. So in our heads, this changes a few things. We know now that the fielding team has got, excuse me, the fielding team has now got to start the penultimate over. So in this case, they've only got to start the 16th over. We've also in our heads got to work out how long they've got. So 17 overs times 4 minutes is 68 minutes. We've already played 26 minutes. So from 1300 to 1326. So taking away 68 or 26 from 68 leaves 42 minutes. 42 minutes left of the permitted time allocation. And on top of that, we've given them 2 minutes for that sight screen. So we know from now there's 44 minutes left for them to be in position to bowl the start of the 16th over. And that 44 minutes is 10 past 2. Everyone okay with all that?
Yep.
Okay, so we start play again. At 13:53, a 6 is hit into the hockey pitches that takes 3 minutes to retrieve.
Sorry, Paul, just have a quick question on that.
Yeah, Bala, work away.
If the rain starts at 13:26 and it rains for 24 minutes, then shouldn't the restart time be 13:50?
Yeah, 13:50.
Yeah, there's a mistake there, Paul, somewhere. Yeah.
Oh, you're right. Sorry. Yeah. Thanks, Bala.
So I've got 14:34 as my new finish time.
Yep. Thank you, Bala. Yep, completely my fault. Thanks, Bala. Say that again, Bala. So what's the time?
So it's if it's 2 o'clock, 44 minutes, 2:44, then minus the 10 minutes, 34, 2:34.
Everyone
so
okay with that?
From 150 to 150 plus 44.
Yep. Thank you.
So I have
That's your
234.
magical Excel sheet, correct?
Okay, at 13:53, a 6 is hit into the hockey pitches that takes 3 minutes to retrieve. Now, so this is that example I said, and it can happen in lots of grounds around the country. Just because you can see the ball and it's not lost, you know, that doesn't mean you can't add time. So there's nothing the fielding team can. It's not the normal. It's not just going to the boundary and picking the ball up. So I just add 3 minutes on there just to be not to be nice, but just to be, just to make life easy for everybody. So that's an extra 3 minutes now we're adding on. But the 14th over, we're getting towards the end of the innings now. It takes 7 minutes to bowl as 5 boundaries are scored. And each time the ball just gets to the boundary and the fielder picks it up and throws it back, well, sorry, but that's just tough. That's just part of cricket. So we wouldn't be adding on any time there. Okay, so the 15th over, the opening batsman who's on 76 asks for a drink at the end of the over. He has it quickly. The 16th over will begin with no delay. Now, I've already discussed this quite a bit. Just imagine the situation in this stage of the match where you're talking to the fielding team. You're telling them they've got to hurry up. Time's tight. It's all getting a bit frenetic. If the batsman then asks for a drink, that's just going to make everything, even more frenetic. But then you can't tell the batsman, he's been out there a long time. You can't tell him he can't have a drink. So just, again, make life easy. Let the batsman have a drink, add on a minute. Everyone's happy, or everyone should be happy. So I'd be adding on another minute there. So we're now up to 6 minutes of extra time we've given them. Right, Bala, you might need to help me out here. So what is the current PTA, Bala?
1438 by my count.
Yep, 1438.
With that. Okay, so 1438. Yeah, so Tisha's coming in. Is that definitely right, Bala? Yeah.
Yeah.
William here, Bala, I agree with you. I've got 1438.
Yeah, 1438.
Okay, that's not a very good example, is it? Because that doesn't quite work now, does it? Sorry, my fault there.
Paul?
Sorry, can I ask how many minutes did you give in allowances?
So in total, we've got
6 minutes.
2 minutes there, 2 minutes for the sight screen, 4, 5, 6, 3 minutes for that, 7, and then 8 minutes.
Paul, actually, you didn't give any time for the first 2 minutes. That delay start.
26 in total.
So
Yeah,
6 minutes in total. I have 1440 as a cutoff.
Yeah,
But
if you give those 2 minutes, 1440 then.
You give the 2 minutes delayed start in the first over.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. I gave 2 minutes for the side screen.
Yeah.
At 1304. I gave the 3 minutes for the ball into the hockey pitches at 1353, was it?
Yeah.
And the 15th over, I gave an additional minute for the drinks, which is 6. So that's what I gave. So I had I have 1440, because if the cutoff time was for a 44 minutes.
Here's what I have. Okay.
Would you not be using the first 2 minutes in the rain break? That's gone because the rain break. You've only got 4 minutes of extensions after, or allowances after the rain break.
No, right. Sorry, guys. I've been massively inefficient here, and I did bring. Where's my pen? I do humbly apologise as organizer of this workshop.
Aidan, I'll tell you what I have, right? We start off with at 1 o'clock, finish time is 1420, right?
Yeah.
For the side screen is the first one at 1304, right? We add 2 minutes, so the finish time now is 1422.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have the rain, and after all the calculation, I have the finish time at 1434.
Yeah.
Then I add 3
plus the 2 minutes for the side screen.
That's why it's gone
Yeah.
up to 14:34 in the first place.
When
So
Bala when Bala says it has 14:34, it is after adding 2 minutes for the cycling. Otherwise, Bala had 14:32.
Okay, hang on.
Right. So shall I try? I'll try and bring us all together. Let's work through this together, and we'll
Sure.
So match starts at 1300. So the original PTA is 1420. Yeah, everyone happy with that? So
Yeah.
80 minutes. 4 minutes for each over by 20. So 1420 is the original. So they go out to the middle. Those first 2 minutes to fill the team's problem, so we don't add anything there. We're then adding 2 minutes for the sight screen to be moved. Okay, they're 1326 to where are we now? 1350. It rains, and we're reduced to a 17 over match. Okay.
Yep.
So 17 overs is 68 minutes, and we've already had 26. Which is 40.
17 overs is how many minutes?
68.
68 minutes.
Yep. Okay, Kevin. So of the 68, we've already had 42 minutes, which is the we've already had 26 minutes,
yeah.
which is 1300 to 1326. So we've got 42 minutes left of the PTA. Okay, we start at 1350, so adding 42 minutes to that gives 1432. Everyone all right with that?
Yeah, and then we add the 2 minutes.
Exactly, and then we have the 2 minutes. So when we start again, 1434 is the cutoff time. All right.
Yeah.
Now I humbly apologise for not having that in front of me. Right, move on.
On this point.
Yes. Sorry, on.
Sorry, Paul. On this point, I think easy. What I find easier is like forget about this 24 minutes over here. So like at 13:26, there was a rain, and we know that the match reduced to 17 overs, which is 68 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. So you just add the 68 minute as a cutoff time. So which is easy, like 1 hour 8 minutes. So now your cutoff time becomes 1 hour and 8 minutes past 1, right? And then you added 2 minutes for your what is the cutoff, and then you just add on 24 minutes the break which you had, rather than like adding 68 plus 24. It's like easy.
Well,
Prashant, the problem with that is it doesn't take into account the relative over rate before the rain. So you run into the possibility that if a team is well behind themselves, then you're actually going to penalize them further.
Okay, that's okay. No problem. Sorry, go ahead.
I suppose the key thing with a lot of calculations we do is that it doesn't necessarily matter how you get to the right answer as long as you get to that answer. And look, so 1434 is what we're trying to get to there. As long as you get to that, it's okay. So then we start again. So at 1353, we're adding another 3 minutes.
Paul,
yes.
Paul, can I just say that that the two umpires, I was told this and by Kevin and yourself before, is the two umpires should do the calculations separately and then go back and see if they had them right. There's no point in both of you going together because
that's how mistakes come about. So we're adding 3 minutes there. So we now have 5 minutes of extra time, and the PTA is out to 1437. 0.5 here is tough, so we're not adding on anything there. And then 0.6 is we're adding 1 more minute for the break. So we're now up to 6 minutes, and the time is 1438. Okay, everyone all right for that?
Yeah.
Cool. Right. Sorry about that. Now I've made a mistake here. So let's say that at 1430, how's this going to work?
In your example, it's at
over starts, doesn't it? Which isn't mentioned.
No, I think that's okay. Like, say, for example, I'm assuming that in this case, they have taken a lot of time to bowl the overs after rain. So at 14:43, they're still 16th over is starting and the match is 17th over.
Yeah. So what I've done here, folks, I've sort of left out a bit. So as soon as the ball is dead, when the time runs out, you need to be calling dead ball and giving the penalty runs. Okay, so at 14:38, as soon as the ball is dead, if they haven't got to the 16th over, you stop play. And again, this is a communication piece. So come together, have just a quiet chat with the captain and say, look, we're going to have to give penalty runs for the slow over race. Calm everything down. So in this case, and I know I've got the time wrong there. So imagine that says 14:38, the 16th over starts. Or sorry, even 14:39, the 16th over starts. They've just missed their target, and they're 1 over short. I'm really not explaining this very well, folks.
No,
I do apologize.
They wouldn't have missed the target then.
So they have to start and bowl the 16th over, because this is a reduced rain match. Okay, it's a 17 over match, so they have to start the 16th over by 14:38. Yeah. If they just miss that by, say, 1 minute or 1 ball, they're 1 over short, and so we're giving them a 6-run penalty. So at that point, you need to tell the scorers, you need to get 6 runs added onto the score, tell the captains, and then once that's done, take a deep sigh, and then you can move on. And from that stage, then time is no longer an issue.
I think the better thing would be that they ball the 4th ball of the 15th over at 14.
Exactly. Yeah. So I missed out a line there. I wasn't very clever. So at 14:43, and the 16th over starts. What happens now? Nothing. You're just going on and continuing the match. And you keep on going at 14:48, the 17th over starts. You've already given the run penalty. You move on. And then this is Kevin's point from earlier on. So eventually in the 17th over, the batting side are bowled out. How does this affect things? It doesn't. The crucial thing is that by the time the PTA finished, they hadn't bowled the overs they needed to be, and you added the runs. Now, I made a bit of a cock up there in explaining that. So, is everybody happy enough with the way that works? Any questions?
Paul, might I go back to the very beginning? Peter Searson will have a view on this, I'm sure, but part of our difficulty is communicating all this to all parties. I try to make a point of always telling the fielding captain when I'm making minutes allowances, but it's obviously difficult to communicate that across to the scorers as well. I am assuming that the scorers start their timing from the call of time. Sorry, from the call of play, I should say. Are we just making lives difficult for ourselves if we choose to ignore that 2 minutes prior to the call of play? Because our timekeeping is then 2 minutes out with the scorers.
You're asking me? Not necessarily, Peter. So, in some respects, this is getting off the subject a bit, because it's not. As umpires, we're not doing anything. So that specific example, Peter, wouldn't make any difference to the scorers. So all we're saying is we're not giving them 2 minutes to their PTA. So the scorers would say the innings started at 1300. We're saying the innings are starting at 1300. All we're not doing is giving them an extra 2 minutes later on for doing it. Yeah, so that particular example doesn't affect the start of the game or anything.
But wouldn't the scorers be taking their start time as the moment you called play?
Peter, can I just come in there? The playing conditions say that the umpire and the bowler's end will inform the fielding captain, the batsman, and his fellow umpire of any time allowances as and when they arise.
Yep.
They do not need to inform the scorers of allowances.
Yeah, but in the interest of working as a cooperative, I think to my mind, it falls into the same category as you're allowing the extra minute for the drink, even though it didn't take him that long.
But it's not really relevant to the scores because the scores aren't the ones who are making the judgment call on when the PTA is expired. There's no requirement, with the greater respect to scores, there's no requirement to tell the scores of what the situation is. The umpires manage the situation and the umpires tell the scores what their decision is in terms of penalty runs that may or may not be applied.
Yeah, you could argue that, certainly. I'm not sure it's the best team of four management. Peter may have a view on it. He's the only scorer I can see here, but there may be others.
Or you could let the scorers know the start time was 1 o'clock. So you don't need to explain anything. Just say that we have the start time at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, Peter, I just, in my personal thing, what I do is if there is a penalty applied, I would explain it after the innings is over, saying that, look, this is what it does, and this is what these are the times I've added. Because I record all the times added. So I show them at the end of it.
Yep. Okay.
Not during the thing. So it's going to be difficult. It's going to, especially if it's a 20-over match, it's the pace of the match is a bit high. So, if you have to stop and go over to if you don't have walkie-talkies, for example, if you have to go over to the scorers, you're just going to be wasting that extra time.
Mm-hmm.
And in all probabilities, it's just a minute. I mean, you're over by an over or two. You could always wait for 10 minutes and explain it to them later.
Yeah, it might be worth doing if you have walkie-talkies, but otherwise you could actually be delaying the match even further by having to take time.
Indeed, yeah.
Just to put in there, as a scorer here, I'd be asking you to tell me it at the end of the innings, because we're rushing to get you as a Duckworth-Lewis sheet out to you, and we need to know what we need to get you, because people want Duckworth-Lewis sheets and they have to be out to you before the start of the next inning. So you telling me that during that thing I have to get Duckworth-Lewis ready and everything. So, and to finish our book, because everyone wants to see umpires and everyone wants to see how great your book looks.
What do you regard the start of the innings, start of the innings in this particular example, Peter, as a scorer?
1,300 hours. When you wave to me, are you ready? I'll take that.
Oh, that's your start time.
Yep, I know that's what you've said. You're waving to us scorers. Us scorers are waving back to you. We're ready. And if they're chatting away. It's nothing I can do.
Peter Q, I don't want to labour the point, but the scorers have no responsibility for managing the time in the match whatsoever. It's the umpire's decision as to manage the time in the match. So while it might be interesting and convenient for them to write down in the scorebook what time the inning started, with the greater respect to the scores, it actually has no relevance to the calculations that need to be done.
Okay.
That's basically everything. I just want to go through a few of the comments, mainly down to my ineptitude. I just want to go back over the penultimate over and the terminology around that, and precisely how many penalty runs, if you like, we should be giving. So in a normal game that's not rain reduced, the bowling team needs to be in position to bowl the last over before the permitted time allocation finishes. So in a T20, they need to be in position to bowl the 20th over before the 80 minutes is up. If they're in the 1 over before it, you're giving 6 runs penalty. If they're 2 overs before it, you're giving 12 runs, and so on. If a match is reduced by rain, then they have to be in position to bowl the penultimate, which is 1 back, if you like. So for a T20, that would be, well, sorry, I'm confusing it again, but if the penultimate over in a T20 game would be the start of the 19th.
Oh,
so
let's go through some numbers. Maybe we think. So we have a 20-over game, okay? So the time elapses in 19.4 overs after the 4th ball. No, sorry, 18.4 overs. How many overs are they short? One. Yeah, perfect. Time elapses 17.2.
2 overs.
Two. Right. Yeah. So
You don't
what's
count.
good?
You don't count for the 0.4s.
Yeah. What's exactly what you need to be careful to figure out is the difference between the ball number, as you might describe it there, the 17.2, and the 18th over. But the 17.2 is the 18th over, but they're 2 overs short.
Yeah, thanks, Kev. And do the same thing now. So imagine a rain reduced game. So what? We've got an 18 over game, Kevin.
Yep.
So we come back 1. So everybody, an 18th over game. The time is up in the, where are we now? 16.4 overs. How many are we short?
1.
Yeah, 1 over short. 15.2 overs. It's up in
2.
We're now 2 overs short. Thanks, Kev. Does that make sense to everybody? I'll be honest that when we run into problems with this as an umpiring team, that seems to be where we get it wrong a lot, that the wrong number of penalty runs are attributed to the teams.
Paul, William here. I think there's too many people really overthinking this. Everyone is really overthinking these 2 minutes at the start and having to tell the scorers and having to do this and having to do that. If you actually just go through the numbers, this example is quite straightforward. You just have to go through the numbers and write out the times and write out through the process of it. We're getting way too caught up in a 2 minutes at the start, and people are saying, "Oh, what about this? What about that?" You don't, as Kevin said earlier on, the whole area around dealing with the time and time allowance and time allowed and additional time being added on is purely down to the 2 umpires. From a scorer point of view, they can record the start of the time because they want to have how long a batsman's innings lasted. That's their responsibility. That's what they're recording. From an umpire's point of view, it is the 2 umpires on the field. If there's a third umpire, you're telling the third umpire if there's an allowance. But for the 2 guys on the field, you're recording yourself. You're letting your partner know, listen, that ball went into the hockey pitch there. It's taken 3 minutes, so we're going to give them 3 minutes. And when you start umpiring with people on a regular basis, you know what I mean? It's a little flick to your watch maybe and a quick signal of put 3 fingers, you know what I mean? So you know, they give an idea that you've added on time. But we're getting too caught up in various different things. It is straightforward when you look at it. You take the numbers and just go through the numbers. Take the cricket out of it and just go through the numbers. It is 1 o'clock start. Cut-off time is 14:20. There was an extra 2 minutes. There's an extra 24 minutes for rain. There's an extra 3 minutes, an extra 1 minute. That brings you up to your revised cut-off time. Within all of that, you start, you know what I mean, your calculations start to come in about your overs and things like that. But for working out the cut-off time, people are getting way too into it and way too caught up in it. It really is just a matter of writing out an example. Like what you have there, the only different thing is that there's just a slight thing in your timings. But if you go through that example again and write out the times, so you just write out the times, you realize that it is a maths process. It's not a big, complicated, difficult thing. It is just a maths process, and that's all we need to do. And once you go through the process,
there's another factor with you as well. The other factor is, this is obviously an example that we do in sort of a classroom setting. In the reality of a cricket match is there's 2 or 3 hours have elapsed in the time that all this has happened. So these things don't come at you bang, 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 bang. They happen in,
24, in this case,
slow,
it's 24 minutes.
they
of
happen
rain.
in slow increments where you get a bit of time to think about it, and you get a bit of time to, in that 24 minutes, to sit down and say, okay, between the two of you, what's the situation? So there's no, even though it feels like you're, trying to drink from a fire hose at the moment, it's a lot more calm, I suppose, for want of a better word, or drawn out, maybe is another word, over the course of an actual cricket match. So, like all good exams, the exam is harder than the practical. So.
And just to say there, Kevin, that's good. A good thing. And just as you say, scorers don't care. We don't, in books that people score on, is that we just put in that we had a rain delay. You'll never see that and what time was ended. Why you'll always tell us why there was extra time. Scorers all ask. That's all.
Yes, Peter, and I fully agree. And that's the umpire's role at the innings break.
At the innings break, yeah.
And actually, sometimes you can, if things work out, you can actually nearly do it before you go back onto the pitch, because if you're smart and doing your calculations, you make sure the calculations work out for you, right? In this example, we're offered 24 minutes. 24 minutes divided by 8, you got lost 3 overs for each side. Why would you go back out after 26 minutes or 28 minutes? You know what I mean? If you're close to 28, you push it out.
I think, Paul, we should just move on now.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
There you go.
Right, everybody. That's an hour and a half of your time. Sorry the confusion I caused at the end there, but please get on the WhatsApp group if you need to answer any if you need any questions answered. I'm here to help. Zoom's not always the best for getting questions answered and stuff. So let's just try and get through the season without having any cock-ups in this regard. And hopefully this has helped a little bit. Cool. Thanks all.
Paul, thank you very much for giving your time tonight. Thank you.
Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks all.
Thank you,
Soon.
you all.
so much.
Paul, thank you very much.
Right.